Hi guys, it's Terracell for Mint Owl Studios, and today I am going to be doing a really fun technique featuring one of the fabulous new stencils that was just released and is now available over in the Mint Owl Studios shop. There's 4 fabulous stencils, so make sure you check that out. So to start, I've got a piece of watercolor cardstock, and it is cut slightly larger than an A2 card because I'm going to trim it down at the end. And I'm just going to go ahead and distress ink the whole front of this panel. So I'm using 3 different colors. I'm starting with some cracked pistachio, and then I'm blending into some twisted citron, and then I'm going to finish up with some squeezed lemonade. So kind of doing a fun, summery, I don't know, this feels light and breezy and citrusy to me. So I don't know, that screams summer, and we're getting warmer weather here in Oregon. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but summer is definitely creeping up. So I love this color combination. I never would have thought to put twisted citron with the cracked pistachio, but I saw another designer do it and I was like, oh my gosh, that color combo is fabulous. So now I'm going to take this beautiful stencil. I thought this reminded me of a waffle cone for the ice cream, so it goes well with the stamp set I'm going to use. And rather than stencil the ink through the stencil, I'm going to take my sprayer and spritz this with water. So one amazing property of distress inks is that they react with water. So I'm going to now take that panel that I used, flip this over carefully, and press that water down onto the design. So what this is going to do is it's going to cause the ink to wick away where that water is in the pattern of the stencil. So you can see there, you can kind of see the pattern, but there's still a lot of water. I debated a wadded paper towel, and then I decided to get a fresh one, and I'm going to press that paper towel over the top, and that's going to pick up the rest of that moisture. And when I pick it up, you can very clearly see that really awesome pattern. So you could get a similar look by using the stencil as a stencil is meant to be used and just put the ink over the top of the stencil. But I love how this kind of gives you that distressed look. You can see in some places the pattern is not super clear. You get that really cool kind of mottled effect, and you just don't quite know what the water and the ink are going to do. So it kind of adds like this extra element of like amazingness to your cards. So I don't know, I thought that was particularly fun. These stencils are fabulous because they're 6x6, so you can fit an entire front of a card base on them, which is also really cool. A lot of stencils come smaller and you have to kind of line them up. I'm not so good with that, so the 6x6 stencils work really well for me. So I'm using this adorable I Scream You Scream stamp set. Again, perfect for summertime, right? And I'm going to take a piece of that same watercolor cardstock. This is Canson XL watercolor cardstock, and I'm just going to heat emboss a few of these cute little ice cream images onto this piece of cardstock. So I did 3 of the popsicles and 3 of the ice cream cones, and I put a little smiley face on one of the popsicles. So there's a bunch of cute faces in the stamp set. And I'm going to bust out my Gansai Tambi watercolors. These are Kuretake, and this is the first time I have opened them, and I'm just like in awe of these, I'm not gonna lie. So I went off camera and I took the time to fill in that little color palette on the top of the lid. It comes with the watercolors, and that way I was able to kind of pick out some colors I'm going to use. You can see the little trays come out. I mean, there's a million bajillion videos on YouTube using these watercolors, and that's of course how I learned about them and figured out that I just had to get my hands on them. But anyway, if you haven't seen them before, the little trays come out, which makes it really cool and easy to use, so you don't have to keep that big box by you. You can just take out the colors that you want and put them near you and then go ahead and watercolor with them. So the watercoloring I'm doing is really just simple. I'm kind of going with the same color palette that I used to color in my background, and I'm just kind of picking a slightly darker shade and a lighter shade in each different color family. I'm coloring 1 popsicle and 1 ice cream cone in each different color family, just putting a little bit of shadow on it and then coming in with the lighter color and blending out. I'm really just wanting to play with these watercolors. I'm not trying to do any fancy schmancy painting. I'm just kind of wanting to see how they work. And let me tell you, they're delicious. They're so creamy. And that seems so crazy. Like, I would hear other reviews and I'm like, okay, so they're creamy. Like, what does that really mean? Can you really feel the creaminess when you use them? Well, you can. They are just creamy goodness. Like, they're perfect for ice cream cones. I think they were made to color ice cream in because of the creamy goodness. So anyway, loving these watercolors, and I can't wait to do some more experimenting and do a little bit more in-depth watercoloring with them. These are really great images. They're nice and simple. They let you kind of practice your coloring. When you heat emboss them like that and then you do watercoloring, it's nice because the watercolor stays kind of in the designated area. It can't really escape because the the heat embossing creates that kind of raised area. So that was just another foolproof way that I was able to just play with the paints and not have to stress too much about what I was actually doing here, which is always nice. I feel like I've been out of the craft groove for a long time. I went to Mexico on vacation, and then like promptly the second I got home, I got the flu, and I was literally out for the count for a week. Like, it was ridiculous. I was completely bedridden, and now I'm finally like back up and running. And then I had a work trip like out of town for like 3 days, and I'm just all over the place, I feel like. So I'm pretty excited to be back in the craft room playing with some new craft supplies. I've got all these yummy goodies. I was so excited to get that new stencil and start using it, and I'm gonna have to get my hands on the other ones because there's some really cute, unique designs there. So I'm super excited about that. So for the cones and the stick on these bad boys, I took this kind of orangish brownish tone here, and I'm just kind of putting down a little bit in the darkest areas, and then I'm putting some more water on my brush and pulling that out. So this isn't like a perfect cone color, but it was kind of the closest I could get with these watercolors. So I just kind of added more water to kind of lighten it up. I'm going outside the lines because I know that I'm going to be cutting these out, so I'm not super stressed about staying inside the lines. So that's why you see me just kind of going cray down there on that blue one in the corner. It's like all over the place, but I am totally not worried about it because I'll be cutting them out later. So then I wasn't sure what to do with the actual like ice cream part of the popsicles there, because the droopy oozy yumminess on the top was colored in the colors, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do with the ice cream. So I decided to make it chocolate. And the brown in this set was kind of dark. So rather than mix it with normal white, the set comes with this really pretty pearlescent like white color that adds some shimmer. So I mixed up on my craft mat here a little bit of the brown, and then I added a little bit of that white pearly shimmery color, and it lightened the brown up just enough that I could make these little chocolate bars. And it has bonus in the light, they are totally super shimmery. It's like adding perfect pearls to something. So I thought that was just a super fun way to do that. So now I'm going to do my sentiment, and I'm using this Have a Sweet Birthday sentiment that comes with the stamp set, but instead of using it the way that it is, I wanted it to be all in a straight line. So you can see I've taken a little bit of Post-it tape, and I just covered up the parts of the sentiment that I don't want to ink up, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp that in some Versamark ink on some black cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss my sentiment in white. So I am pausing in between each little chunk of the sentiment, and I am heat embossing and heat setting that so that I know where to stamp my next piece, and nothing's going to move out of the way or anything like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and mask off the Have A and Birthday so that I only have the word sweet. And one advantage to doing this with heat embossing rather than straight ink is that if I do get a little bit of that Versamark ink where I don't want it, and you can see some of that powder sticks, I just take my brush and wipe the powder off, which is awesome. And then when I heat set it, you can't even tell that my ink went where it wasn't supposed to. So it's pretty stellar. It kind of makes it a little bit foolproof. If I'd been doing this with plain ink, you would have been able to see, oh, pardon my head there, I had to line it up, but you would have been able to see where the ink kind of went where it wasn't supposed to, but you're just able to just sweep that embossing powder right off there, and you just never know the difference. So that is just another way you can use your sentiments. So it's not the way it comes in the stamp set, but I was able to stretch it and make it into something new. So I thought that was pretty fun. So now to kind of put my card together, I had this vision of this little vellum piece kind of behind the ice cream to kind of set them off against that background, but I still want to be able to see that beautiful background. So I ran this through my Big Shot with a couple of dies. The one at the top was just supposed to put some stitch line detailing, but the vellum was too thin and it cut all the way through, so I just trimmed that off. It was kind of a failed experiment. But the bottom one, which is a stitch scallop die from Lawn Fawn, worked beautifully, and I think it's super pretty on the vellum. So I'm just going to adhere that panel that I colored for my background onto a black A2 top folding card base, and I did trim that down to be just slightly smaller than an A2 card base, to leave an 1/8 of an inch border of the black around. So I was able to trim off some of that, and you can see on the side some of the strips that I trimmed off when I was trying to get that down to the right size. I'm actually going to use some of those on the inside of my card to complete the design. So I decided to keep those and go ahead and use them because I took all that time to make that pretty background, and the strips were pretty, so why not? So I put my vellum on top of my card base, and then I'm going to line up kind of my ice creams where I want them. And I'm just going to stick one quick little line of adhesive from my ATG gun on the back of the ice cream and then adhere it to the vellum. Now the vellum is not stuck to the card in any way yet, because once I have my ice creams on there, that's when I'll flip the vellum over and I can put the adhesive on the vellum behind the ice cream so you're not able to see it from the front. So I was going to use all 6 ice creams on the front, but I decided that was a little crowded, so I went ahead and scooched some of those over so that I only used 5 on the front, and that was pretty cool because it left me an extra one to use on the inside. So now I have all those on there, and that's where my sentiment's going to go. And now you can see what I mean. I'm just going to put that adhesive right behind those ice cream cones and then stick it on the front of the card, and that way you can't see any of the adhesive through the vellum, and it looks like it's just kind of floating there, which I think is super cool. I kind of went easy on the adhesive on everything. You can see like the ends of the sticks are still popping up and everything. I kind of like that look on this. Like everything's kind of floating a little bit, which I think is a little bit fun. It adds some dimension without actually using any dimension. So it was just another way to do that. So now I've stuck my sentiment on there, and you can see I trimmed everything up so that it's the same size as the front of the card. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the inside. And like I said, I'm using those strips that came from the background panel when I cut it down to size. And I'm just going to go ahead and line those up on the inside of the card. And I just went ahead and used 3 of those. And then I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back of this little ice cream. Stick it right over the top there, and then I'll trim that up so that it's nice and even, and that is going to be the inside of my card to coordinate with the front, which I thought was pretty fun. So now you could totally be done if you wanted, but as I always do, I have to put extra details on. So first was some highlights with my white gel pen, and then I'm going to come in with some Pretty Pink Posh clear droplets, and I'm going to use my micro glue dots to apply a few of those here and there on top of the vellum. And again, all this is just kind of floating. I think it's super fun, like floating up there adds that dimension, and that is the finished card. So there is a close-up look of the inside of the card, and then here is a close-up look of the watercoloring and that really cool background that you get from that reverse stenciling technique on the front. So make sure you check out Mint Owl Studios blog, and if you haven't followed them on social media already, go ahead and check out the description box below for all those links. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.